Okay, Mayor, we're ready to get going whenever you are.
All right, great. Before we do, we'll go ahead and start with our land acknowledgement. The City of South Lake Tahoe acknowledges the lands we occupy today are the lands in the home of the Washoe. The people from here known today as the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, a sovereign nation. Since the beginning of time and for thousands of years before the arrival of any other people, the Washoe lived here and cared for this place, with values and intention that we can all learn from. On behalf of the City Council, I would like to acknowledge, thank, and honor the indigenous Washoe tribal communities that are the past, present, and future stewards of the Lake Tahoe Basin. With that, we'll call this meeting to order and open with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and Ms. Blankenship, could we get a roll call?
Of course. Councilmember Horgan?
Here.
Councilmember Jenkins?
Here.
Councilmember Robbins?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Roberts?
Here.
Mayor Bass?
Here.
All present.
Great. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to our consent agenda. We have 2 items today on our consent agenda. Item number 2, we will need to pull if we're going to approve it, as we have a motion that we're going to need to add that was not in the staff report. So I guess I'll go ahead and pull it. And then, so let's go ahead and we'll have 1 item on consent. If there's anybody here, or if there's any quick questions or anybody wanted to pull item 1. Yes.
I just have a,
Sir.
excuse me, sorry. I just have, first I want to say great job, great effort to get the $8 million funds. My only caution or urging is that the project stay within the budget amount that is being appropriated. That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, then with that, if there are no other questions, we will go ahead and open this consent agenda, just the first item, to public comment. Yes, Mr. Miller.
And Mr. Miller, this is item 1 on, or this is only on item 1 on consent. They have pulled
I
item 2, which is
misunderstood.
the one that you provided a written public comment on.
So,
Item 2, the item that you provided public comment on, will be brought forward in just a minute. Right now, we're just doing consent. Yeah.
And Ms. Blankenship, I did not call for general public comment.
We don't have that for special
Okay,
meetings.
great.
Yep.
Just wanted to just wanted
Yeah,
to check.
no worries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else here in the room for public comment on item 1 on the consent? Seeing none, we'll look on Zoom.
No hands raised on Zoom, Mayor.
Great. Back to council for a motion.
I make a motion to approve item 1 on consent agenda.
second. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we can vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, hold on one second. My voter-rater isn't working. And that was Ms. Horgan first, who provided the second?
You have to break the tie.
Who's that? Mr. Jenkins. Mr. Jenkins, all right, that sounds good. All right, record, go to vote. All right, that motion unanimously carries. Thank you so much for your patience.
Great. All right, moving on to item 2. This is the communications site license agreement between the City of South Lake Tahoe and the County of Placer. And we have pulled this item. Any questions from any of the council members on this item? Okay. Oh, yep.
Mr. Mayor.
Hey, yep. No worries.
I'll hold my comments until after we've received public comment.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody here in the room opening this up to public comment? Mr. Miller.
How much time have I?
3 minutes, sir.
3 minutes, okay, thank you. Good afternoon to all. I'm Alan Miller. I'm a professional civil and environmental engineer, and I reside here in the city. I'm following up my written comments opposing a lease agreement with Placer County for a proposed new antenna for wireless communications in Placer County. be sited atop an existing 125-foot tower at the police station, and that's directly adjacent to the Al Tahoe Middle School, with no information provided about distances or anything. As stated in my written comments, this entire proposal is not only ill-conceived, but administratively and procedurally inadequate for failing to even consider city code requirements for such facilities. This project has been in the works for several years, city staff just proceeding in ignorance of city code. It's another prime example among many of how the city routinely conducts business illegally and against the people it is charged to serve. That's why your former attorney resigned, and God bless her, for she's tired of representing a corrupt and unethical system with you all at the helm. There's nothing but a $6,000 per year lease payment of benefit to the city with this proposal. It set a very bad precedent by allowing a neighboring county to site its facilities in our community and thereby externalize all impacts, controversies, and siting issues to another jurisdiction, not unlike Los Angeles took over Inyo and Mono County for their water supply. Placer County is not a telecom, but is essentially functioning as one in this instance. It's unclear whether the Federal Telecommunication Act even applies to the proposed action. Your environmental and other review activities under CEQA may not be preempted, and the same may apply to state law. I appreciate you pulling the item today. I think the public really needs to be involved in this decision because the microwaves and other effects from this tower, whether you adhere to the FCC illegal and bogus safety regulations, the citizens in this town are going to bear the impacts of that for Placer County. And this is not needed for safety. There's no demonstration of that. There's no compliance with CEQA. I don't agree with the exemption being applied. It's just, they're saying it's not a project. It's a project. It applies as evident under the law on several provisions. So anyway, I think you have my written comments. Just wanted to augment a little bit with my own testimony that I just think this is just very needed to come before the public.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Anybody else here in the room that would like to give public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we will go to Zoom.
No hands raised on Zoom, Mayor. Thank you.
Great. Okay, we'll bring it back to council and Mr.
I have a question as well.
Well,
If I could just, before we move on to, if a council member wants to make a comment, if you could do the raise hand button, that way I can start doing the
I'm working on it.
5-minute
That would be
suggested time for each council
and I
member.
think I will actually start with Mr. Jenkins because he actually had started first.
Did you want to hit the
Yes,
raise?
Mr. Jenkins.
raise-
And
It's not recognizing that.
Well, let's talk to my wife. You requested, it says I requested, but.
Oh, okay, I will go ahead and add you.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, what has been raised is not a new issue for us, for the region. The issue that I hear being raised in this situation is one of safety. That's what I hear it as. I understand that the way that the request has been interpreted, that the city may, and I'm looking over at our city attorney, the city may decide that it wishes to do additional review under CEQA. I think such a review is appropriate because of the lingering issues that remain about the safety of facilities that are being placed in the city limits. And so I would hope that I have no doubt that staff brought it forward with goodwill, good intention, but safety should always come first. There's been safety issues raised. There's controversy raised if you read what's online. And I think that itself could trigger at least a CEQA review. That's my understanding. So that's what I would like the council to do, is to have staff do some additional CEQA review to determine that what we are doing is safe. We make the decision because we cannot do, in my opinion, cannot do anything less than ensure that whatever we approve is safe for our community, safe for the people who are working at the police department and others. So that's it.
Great. Mr. Jenkins, Ms. Horgan.
Actually, I have a question I think that the Chief Roberson could ask. As a member of Search and Rescue in El Dorado County, we depend on the sheriff's radio communications in order to communicate when we are in progress of a search. And the sheriff's office has a number of repeaters, the county, around the basin to enhance our radio communications. I just want to make sure I'm understanding that the intention of this radio tower would be improve that type of communication, line of sight to a radio communication for the Placer County, including, which would be the Nordic Search and Rescue Team?
I'm not sure about which search and rescue team, but you're right. There are a series of towers around the lake that multiple public safety agencies use for interoperability. The addition of this microwave antenna on the top of our tower would improve public safety communications throughout in the basin, with an emphasis on Placer County, right? Their boat team often works with ours. Their detectives often work with ours. So there is interoperability there. And this is to enhance their communications because of the shadow between the west slope and the
Correct,
east slope of Placer
because the
County.
radios mostly work in line of sight.
Right.
And so, okay, so I just want to share that I'm in support of this as somebody who has seen how difficult radio communications can be in emergency situations in the basin, and I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Ms. Horgan. Mr. Robbins.
I had a very similar question or similar observation because I also spent 2 years on search and rescue. So I'll make my question a little more specific. Most of the sheriff's office communications, especially on SAR activities in the south shore of the basin, went through the Genoa repeater. And I'm curious whether or not the Placer County is already using Genoa or if they considered that as an alternative siting, and why this location and not Genoa, or is this an addition?
That's going to be way beyond my scope. In talking about this tower, they said if this didn't come through, they'd have to look for alternate locations. So whether Genoa comes into that play to those alternates, I don't know.
It's not just that it may or may not be an alternate, they may be using it, because there's an established tower there, they may be using that already. That's what I would want to know, if this is something that they've looked at, something that they're already doing and they need more, but the answer is we don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to contact their comms guys.
You know, cellular communication can be very limited, so just to emphasize the point that this, for a lot of search and rescue missions and other public safety missions, this is the only way to communicate, and so I think it's an important addition.
I'll also note, just for the public's understanding, that there is an important reason why communications relays on the North Shore, for relays for communications on the North Shore, need to be situated on the opposite side of the lake. It's the same reason that when I've done many search and rescues in the Talac area, you're using repeaters on the opposite side of the lake from where you are. And that's because if you're in the mountains block your communication. It's actually easier to bounce the signal across the lake and then back through a repeater. And then you can have communications across mountains that would otherwise obscure communications if you tried from point to point, and you're particularly in areas where there's no cell service. And so that's one of the reasons, just to address the comment of, you know, the notion of outsourcing, that we do the same thing in the opposite direction, where operations on the California side use the repeaters on the Nevada side, and then operations on the Nevada side use repeaters on the California side. It can be counterintuitive, but because we don't live in a flat area, that actually turns out to be the more effective way to structure communications in the basin. But I wouldn't mind an answer if we could ask Ron, and I'm fine with moving ahead on a vote today, but just for completeness of knowledge, I think it would be good if the council could get an answer as to that way we could forward that information to concerned citizens, people who ask us why here, why this, why that, why not some other alternative. Was Genoa Peak Radio facility considered as an alternative, or do they already have that? And get that as an answer, and just email us or feed it back to us in some appropriate Brown Act compliant channel, as the case may be.
Okay, great. Let's see. Sure, Mr. Jenkins.
Per se, I don't object to making search and rescue easier and more effective, as long as whatever we're using is benign, whatever technology we use is benign. And what local governments, our local government, other local governments, with exceptions, have not focused on is what the mechanism, is it safe? And before I will vote for anything regarding new facilities where there's controversy, that's under CEQA, that's one of the triggers, as I understand it, in my lay view. And there's a safety question, that question at least needs to be answered. Not that I'm opposed to the agreement if it's benign, but if it's not benign, it can affect either police department or adjacent department, court, because the court's in that area, employees, the school in the area. Then if it can harm them, then I'm not in favor of it. And none of us, to my knowledge, with maybe the exception of Mr. Miller, has the training to do that. So when we say it's categorically exempt, based on what? On our knowledge of as being environmental engineers, I am not one, and nor do I think we have any on staff. So I'd like an answer, a safety answer, before we move forward with this. I don't think it should be exempted from CEQA. CEQA was designed, my understanding, lay understanding, is it's designed to ensure that whatever action we take is in fact safe, and so that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Ms. Horgan, did you have another question? I just see your hand up here. If not, no worries.
I was going to ask if the attorney had anything to share in regards to the CEQA obligation.
Yeah, so I will note the public comments we received regarding CEQA guidelines 15378 being inapplicable to the proposed project, and I will say that I do agree with those. However, there are numerous court decisions upholding that these kinds of projects, radio towers, wireless facilities, are going to be exempt under CEQA guidelines 15303, which covers construction and location of limited numbers of new small facilities or structures, and installation of small new equipment and facilities in small structures. The council, of course, is at liberty to decide to do more investigation or review if it so desires, but there is guidance from the court that these kinds of facilities are normally deemed exempt under CEQA.
Great. All right, thank you. Mr. Roberts.
I just had a question. As regarding the safety, the term microwave certainly is a scary term when you think about safety, but isn't that also an all-encompassing term for radio waves? I know my father worked for Hughes when they invented the microwave frequency that they use in ovens. They were testing it and they had to shut it off because their stomachs got hot. So they discovered it by mistake. But not all microwave frequencies are dangerous. Is this term being used improperly or something?
You got a physics person. It's a funny story. There's actually in World War II, radar operators would use it to warm up in the cold weather. It's actually an old story, but it's not that it's a term for all radios. It covers a huge swath of radio frequencies, some of which are used to do things like heat water, and some of which are really only useful for communications and can't do that. None of them are high enough frequencies to damage DNA or anything like that. That's just not. They're not. It's not that they're not powerful enough. The frequencies are not high enough. But what's not in the report, though, that I noticed to your question is I'm assuming that this is at the VHF or UHF bands because that's what we use for all the other police department, law enforcement, search and rescue frequencies. But just in the staff report, didn't list like what frequency within microwave range is an enormous chunk of the radio frequency spectrum. But this is almost presumably voice and some amount of data communication, I assume, but it didn't say which band sets are being used. And I assume the lease is really just for, equipment racks and stuff that they're going to figure that out. But do we know what frequency bands they're planning to install here?
I don't know what frequency band, UHF, VHF, and microwave, different segments of the radio wave spectrum, way beyond my scope here. But I don't know what the frequency is.
Yeah, microwave bands are like cell phone frequencies. So when you hold a cell phone to your head and to your face, your phone is transmitting in a microwave. And it's a higher frequency band. That's why it can transmit data and do cable television. But the VHF, UHF that you use for like police radios and fire department radios, that kind of thing, are on much lower frequencies because they travel longer. They're less susceptible to interference. They can refract around mountains and things like that to a degree. And so, but I don't know which band set they're playing. That's what I was just curious about that really more than anything.
Great. All right.
Yeah, one would presume, yeah, that would be a reasonable assumption.
Great.
It would have been nice if that, just because this is a matter of disproportionate public interest, it would have been nice to have a little more of that detail this is feedback for staff. It would have been nice to have a little more detail in the staff report so that we could answer those questions with regards to the public interest. I think it's not, I don't imagine the answer is disconcerting, but having the answer would have been a better staff report.
Great. All right, thank you. Actually, my only question that comes to mind, and you may or may not know this, but it's possibly that our dispatch center is there, and is that part of why they wanted to add this to this tower? Is because I would assume it may connect
Sort of
to
Genoa,
dispatch?
Yeah.
No, it's the reason for the tower is a clear shot across the lake.
So,
All right.
so is Genoa, which is why I was curious about that.
Great. All right, so we are looking for a motion, and whoever would like to make it, I can hand this piece of cheat sheet to, because we need to add this bottom part to the motion.
I'll yammer it.
All right, there you go.
I'm pretty good at talking endlessly.
All right, take it on.
So it's just this as an addition, not an replacement?
Just an addition, that's right.
Okay. I motion to authorize the mayor to execute the site licensing agreement as indicated with Placer County and to determine that the project is exempt from CEQA pursuant to CEQA guidelines sections 15303, approve the communications site license agreement with the county of Placer, and direct staff to file a notice of exemption. Did I do it right?
I'll
I
second.
think you did. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Anybody want this back?
That motion carries. Thank you.
Great. All right, with that, we'll move on to our public hearing. This is item 3, extending the urgency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on approval of new tobacco retailer applications for all purposes pending the study and development of reasonable regulations. And Ms. Anna Kasusa.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Bass and members of City Council. I'm Anna Kashuba. I'm your senior city planner. The item before you is a follow-up to Urgency Ordinance 2026-1205, which was adopted at your June 2nd meeting. This ordinance established a temporary moratorium on the approval of new tobacco retailers. The action today is the option to extend the ordinance. However, we've also included some information based on council's requests and questions at that last, at the June 2nd City Council meeting. So I'll start with addressing our pending retailers. Out of the 28 retailers that are currently licensed by the state, there are 2 that have not yet opened. One of these has received their building permits and is in the process of completing construction. However, they do not yet have their city business license. The second location has their business license. However, they have not yet applied for the necessary building permit to change the occupancy category of the space. The second matter council wanted brought back was the proximity of these existing retailers to our schools. This information is provided in attachment 2, which is page 30 of your agenda packet. So staff looked at elementary, middle, high schools, as well as preschools. Within 500 feet of these locations, we identified 2 tobacco retailers. One of those is one of those locations I just spoke about that is not currently operating. When we extend the buffer to 1,000 feet, there are additional 5 tobacco retailers. And again, one of those is the other location that's not currently operating. And then 3 more are present when we extend the buffer to 1,500 feet from the school properties. The staff report also includes a summary of what some other California jurisdictions have done regarding regulating tobacco sales as well as use. These are provided simply for context as you consider what a permanent tobacco ordinance might look like for the city. As I initially noted, the action today is just to extend the ordinance by 10 months and 15 days. This brings us to June 1st of next year to conduct outreach and draft an ordinance. If that work is not completed by that time, we can come back before June 1st and extend the ordinance by an additional year. And at that point, that would be the last extension that we are allowed. And with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see, yeah, are you up on my screen? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Jenkins, if you could, there you go.
I am neither a smoker of tobacco or any other product, but I do, and frankly, I don't like tobacco smoke at all. As a reformed person of many years. I'm trying to understand, even though I think I may have seconded the motion on this original matter, what is the motivation if we have existing businesses within the vicinity? What is the motivation of prohibiting other businesses when there are things like you can sell alcohol? We're not doing anything about that. I'm not suggesting we should. I'm just saying we're not doing it. So what is the motivation here? What is the reason that we're looking at this? We have right near the middle school. We have a place where they sell all different kinds of things, but it's all good. I mean,
Yeah, so a lot of times we do see it compared to alcohol. And I will just say at the state level, while the city doesn't regulate locations where alcohol is sold at the state level, those permitting processes are different. So for tobacco, they really just have to apply for the state license, which is actually under like the business and tax category. So it's more so for those purposes, while ABC does look at like the density of alcohol sales, and that's when the city does get involved, and sometimes we'll bring before you a letter of public necessity and convenience, which is when we, the city council can choose to make an exception to allow a higher density of alcohol sales in a specific region. So that's just kind of example of how at the state level they're treated differently. I think at the last city council discussion, there was a desire to kind of align those, the regulation around alcohol and tobaccos more closely.
just one follow-up, Mr. Mayor, if I may. In the end product, we don't know what that is based on the request to study the issue. Are we going to be looking at, or are we going to be looking at tobacco sales by even existing businesses? Is that going to be a topic of consideration to limit that or to prohibit it? And again, I hate cigarettes, so. But I'm not making a value judgment on whether businesses should be favored and allowed to, and other businesses should not be allowed to. And so I'm trying to what can you speculate at all? That's what it is, on what the ultimate review would result in.
As I don't want to speculate too much, I think we would come back to council for, again, the item today is really just to extend this ordinance and give us more time to have those discussions. So I think we'd be looking at coming back before council for a workshop where we really work out, like, based on the proximity to schools, maybe that is the one area we want to focus on. It could be a density cap, it could be a cap of the number of retailers we allowed in the city, altogether. So I think that'll really be up to your guys' discussion as well as what we hear from stakeholder feedback.
If I could just add to that, Mr. Jenkins, just elaborating on that last point, we have not done any public outreach on this issue other than the discussions that have occurred here regarding the urgency ordinance. So those kind of conversations would need to be had with members of our community to determine what they would like to see with respect to tobacco regulation within the city.
Great. All right, any other questions? Miss, I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Are you selected on the?
The right
make
agenda
sure you're-
item.
You have to be on the active item. You have to click on that in order to raise your hand.
Oh, you're fine. No worries.
I thought I was in new glasses,
Ah,
so I can see all of you out there, but then now I can't see what's in front of me.
Choices.
Of course. A couple questions. The definition of these dots. So these are retailers that sell tobacco. What variety of retail outlets do we see? Is it gas stations, mostly gas stations? Does it include like specific tobacco shops? And where else is it sold? I mean, those are the only two places I know that tobacco is sold.
I can pull that information. I don't have it in front of me. I think a good portion of them are gas stations. We have a handful of smoke shops that sell tobacco as well. I think some convenience/liquor stores that aren't attached to gas stations. I know there's a number of those on here as well. I think the vast majority of them would fall within the gas station or like convenience store, liquor store category.
And one more question,
If I could
Oh,
add to
yeah.
that, just looking at the dots, it does look like maybe some of our grocery stores also are
That's what
tobacco
I
retailers.
wondered. Do our grocery stores, our pharmacies cannot in El Dorado County, as I recall?
Yeah, again, just referring to the map, it looks like Safeway and the new Save Mart are both included on here. I can't really make out where the other ones are exactly, but yes.
So to the point that there are a variety of retailers that sell tobacco. And then the other question is the Millennium Smoke Shop that was originally brought to my attention that actually put this on our agenda. Do we know what the distance is from that new, not yet operating tobacco shop is to the middle school?
That one is within the, between 500 and 1,000 feet of the middle school.
500,000.
Okay, and just to Mr. Jenkins' comments, tobacco still is one of the leading causes of death and disability in our country and worldwide, more so by a lot from alcohol. But that isn't the topic of discussion. The reason why this was brought up is because there are concerns in the community about youth smoking and vaping and tobacco shops being within proximity to those sensitive uses. So.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, unless it's a question.
It
for
is a
sure.
question.
Yeah, of course, Mr. Jenkins.
So does this ordinance, Councilmember Horgan raised, she talked about tobacco and vaping. So the ordinance, does it apply also to vaping?
Again, I think that's a to be determined item.
So at the present time, you could not allow tobacco in new businesses, but you could allow there to be whatever the product is for vaping. I don't really know what it is, but it is.
Usually.
So under the moratorium, they could not do a vaping or just the regular old cancer-producing tobacco.
They're both cancer producing.
Well, no, I was just.
What I understand from a clinical standpoint is its delivery and the harm from cigarette smoke or vaping smoke are similar in the chemicals that are inhaled into your lungs. They are actually finding out that vaping creates a different type of harm to the lungs. They're similar to when looked at in postmortem autopsies, popcorn. It looks like it's called popcorn lung, and it is very dangerous. And it's just a vehicle either way, whether you're smoking a filterless hand-rolled cigarette or a filtered cigarette, or you're vaping it, the chemicals are still
So
being
the
inhaled.
moratorium applies to both? Is that
Yeah,
what I'm?
tobacco
Correct.
broadly.
Good,
Yeah,
okay.
As well
the
as chewing tobacco and other forms.
Section 2 defines covered tobacco products to include electronic smoking devices, including devices that aerosolize or vaporize tobacco.
Great. Any other questions? No, I guess I have one quick question on, have we looked at all at what this does, if we were to continue with the moratorium and create a buffer around schools and places that has happened, does that prevent the youth from accessing tobacco? Or have we looked at when that does happen, do they not just go to an unregulated underground market to receive these products? Because I think there's a correlation, in my opinion, to when you have a licensed regulated supply to an unregulated supply and the access for the youth between the two. And have we looked at that?
I did look at some studies. I don't want to misquote anything here when this item comes back. I'm happy to reference some of those and summarize them. And I have reached out to some of the jurisdictions that are discussed in the staff report to see if they have noticed any changes in pattern, and I have not heard back from them either.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You know, one thing I had thought about a lot when I looked at this report, and I really appreciate the report, it's exactly what I had hoped it would be, is when you look at the 50 corridor and you look at the density of tobacco shops, it is, for me, it's also a matter of the beautification of our corridor and what we see when we're driving through town, especially on my end of town. It's, it just
Vape
seems like a
shops and
lot of
junk.
advertising for tobacco and kratom and, yeah, so.
Okay, great. Those are comments, and we will thank you so much for your report. And we will now open this item to public comment for anybody here in the room for public comment on this item. Seeing none in the room, we'll go to Zoom.
We do have one hand raised on Zoom. We have Robin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, so yeah, I'm the current business owner of it. I believe why this issue was raised at 3045 Harrison Avenue. And I just wanted to kind of bring it to everybody's attention that, our business is a 21 and over business, which only people that are only 21 years and older are allowed to even come in the door. So, when I think that you guys are worried about the access for kids to come in, I don't really feel like those really are accurate, because there's not even kids wouldn't even be allowed inside the establishment. So I just want to make that as a note that, only people that are over 21 are actually allowed even inside the doors. It's a 21 and over establishment. And so I want to, make that note just so that, you guys can understand more of the business, that it's not some place that kids would be actually even allowed to even come in the door.
All right, thank you for your comments. There's no additional public comments, Mayor.
Great, so we'll go ahead and bring this item back to council. I don't see anybody speaker. Mr.
I
Robbins.
clicked the button.
All right, we got it.
It's, for me, it's worth even understanding the history and discrimination that brought us to the place where we are now, in which we regulate with extreme ferocity the cannabis, the use and sale and distribution of cannabis, and comparatively hardly at all the use and sale and distribution of nicotine drugs, despite the fact that nicotine is wildly more addictive and wildly more lethal than cannabis. Nonetheless, does not negate the complete irrationality of the situation in which we find ourselves. It's a reason that has to do with a long and really not a long and poor history, but nonetheless it's a complete irrationality, and we've done a lot to try and bring some reason to that, and I think there's still a long way to go if we're going to regulate or see a society that regulates the use of inebriating and intoxicating substances in a way that is rational relative to their actual harm. And for me, the fact that you can buy cigarettes in a lot of places, in pharmacies or grocery stores or gas stations, but to buy cannabis, you have to sign in with an ID, go through, your workforce there has to be background checked. You have to have your ID scanned when you walk in, and then you can walk out with legal cannabis that has been taxed through the nose. But nothing of the sort is of the like for, and we have an entire police officer whose sole nominal role is to police the cannabis industry, right? And that is paid for by the cannabis businesses, but there's nothing even remotely the same for alcohol or for tobacco. Speaks to a real irrationality in our regulatory framework. And I would like to see some sensibility brought back to this in what little ways and in what little pieces we can. We should probably not be selling cannabis in places where youth are allowed to walk in the door. It should probably be 21 or older to enter if you want to buy cannabis. So things like grocery stores and convenience stores should if we don't allow cannabis to be sold there, you need special licensing to sell alcohol, but you need very little for tobacco, and you need an enormous amount of licensing to sell cannabis. I don't know exactly what the regulatory framework should look like. We haven't had the time to study it. We haven't had the time to come up with ideas. We haven't had the time to really fully research the topic yet, which is the purpose of having a moratorium, is to not let the problem get worse while we give some, proper rational thought to this, and to do so in a way that properly takes into account the fact that, look, if we think that we need the amount of regulatory framework around cannabis sales, why do we need so little around tobacco sales, especially since vaping is, I think, now coming up on one of the biggest problems in our school systems in terms of teen addiction rates. Alcohol being a persistent one as well. I would like to hear about how we do tobacco enforcement. I would like to hear about how or if we or the county does, sting operations, false buys, things like that. I know they do some of that for alcohol, but we haven't had the chance to do that. So that's what this is really about, is extending a moratorium to give us time to come up with a proper set of regulations, rather than make a decision about we're not making a decision about what should be in an ordinance today. We don't have an ordinance. We want to spend the next few months giving proper thought to what to do as far as that. And I think that process should really include a sober assessment of the relative risks of the fact that we sell alcohol, we sell cannabis, and we sell tobacco in our community. And we should really be regulating them all on the same playing field of relative harm. And it's a hard argument to say that we're doing that now.
I think, yeah.
Yes, our regulatory framework should be done soberly.
As I hear you, but I will say we have over-regulated cannabis to a point that is a detriment for the businesses to survive. The state, we duplicate the effort from the state at the city level, and there's a lot of effort to change that at a state level to not have
Federal
local.
too, while we're at it.
Well, federal as well, but why do we duplicate efforts when it's already done by the state? And so I'm just going to leave it at that. I think when we go as cities and try to over-regulate businesses, it really goes against what we're here and what our job is to do. But I'll leave it at that. Ms. Horgan.
Yeah, I just comment. So I think what Ms. Kashuba mentioned about the impacts and what communities have seen after they've implemented some of these policies, that's something I'm very interested in hearing. And so I'd like that to come back. I also am curious, what does it look like to do licensing? It's not something, right now it's a business license, right? So tobacco licensing is something different. And I think that's something that wasn't in the scope of this report, and it is something that would be coming down the line, so I'm curious about that. I just want to read one line from the report that says the City of Sacramento requires a tobacco retailer license. New license may not be issued for locations within 1,000 feet of an existing tobacco retailer. just reading that, when I look at the image of the tobacco, the available tobacco retail outlets in our community,
Clustering.
they are clustered. Yeah, and I don't necessarily feel like in hospital we say, actively reducing census is our word. Like when you've got an issue and you're trying to get patients out of the hospital. I'm not saying we need all these retailers to leave, but do we need more? Is the question that I wanted to bring forward. And this is just really helpful, Ms. Kashuba. Thank you for preparing this report and the visual. I encourage people to look at the report in the agenda packet because the visual is really meaningful to me. And so for me, this is a starting point, not the ending point of this discussion.
Okay. I don't see any other, Mr. Robbins. All right, I'll make a couple comments real quick before I go to you. For me, I don't see this again as, well, for one, with what we see on the map, just to be clear, whatever we do is not going to eliminate those that exist. They're non-conforming. They're going to continue to exist because they already had a legal right before we pass a new law. If we passed a moratorium and a new ordinance, it's not going to eliminate those that exist currently. The way that I look at this, again, is when you look at a regulated supply chain, I believe that actually prevents the youth from accessing it. When you actually take it away and make it harder to get. So right now we've made it illegal to sell flavored vapes in the state of California. So you cannot go into one of these vape shops in South Lake Tahoe and get a flavored vape. From what I know, that's what the kids are actually after. But you can go right across the state line and buy it at any one of the smoke shops across the state line. And people actually go to Reno to buy them cheaper, buy them in bulk, and now they're available to the underground, and that's how kids can actually access it. Because somebody buying this from somebody that went to Reno and bought a case of flavored vapes, they're not checking an ID, they don't have a license to lose. Therefore, that's where your kids are getting access to these products, not from a vape shop that has a license to lose, that checks an ID at the door. And so for me, when we want to talk about protecting the youth, I look at it as a completely different avenue, where our PD would work, whether that's through sting operations, whether it's investigations to find out where are these kids accessing these things. I would think it's honest, like it's parents that are not. The same thing with prescription drugs, where parents don't lock up their prescription drugs and the kids get them at home because they don't have good parents parenting. Same type of thing is what I would think. I'm not a parent, so I don't, but I was a kid at one point. So I guess I remember the way that I would have gotten those things wasn't through walking up to a cashier that I knew was going to check an ID because he knows I'm under 21 or 18. So again, I think when you have a regulated supply chain of any of these products, it does better for protecting the youth. And I think that, again, the state of California, I think, is the first state to take on the flavored vapes not being sold anywhere throughout the state. That's a state law, applies to all of our shops. And honestly, I see people go to Reno and buy them, cases at a time. So to me, I can't support this because I don't think that, again, that it does much to help the youth. And I think that our businesses should have equal opportunity to exist. So that's where I'm going to leave it at. And I see Mr. Robbins first.
Yeah, I think a regulatory race to the bottom against Nevada is probably not a race we want to be in. I will also point out that there are very strict limits on who can sell alcohol, particularly in bars that don't serve food. In El Dorado County and in the Basin, those permits are very limited in number, in absolute number, and they're very hard to get. But to sell tobacco, it's almost trivial. It's a lot of paperwork, but it's not nearly as difficult. And so we choose to engage as a society in regulation in very haphazard ways. I think saying that, well, they're just going to go next door to Nevada is not as a good reasoning for us to do less, given the level of sort of permissivity for a lot of these things next door. I don't think that's that's a game we want to be engaging in. But all this being said, none of this is really what's on the table right now. This is about trying to come up and formulate options for future policy and to put a cap on growth. And as far as the clustering that we have, yes, no future ordinance would eliminate them, but it could potentially cause them to be attrited, right? Where if we have a cap and we don't issue new ones, and we have buffer zones and we don't issue new caps, then eventually as those businesses close and new ones open up, then over time, then that through attrition, you can see the clustering and the density be reduced. It's not something that you necessarily do in one stop, but these are all options that will be considered in the next 10 months or so as we formulate options, and that's what the vote here today is about.
Sounds
And
good,
it
Ms.
has my
Horgan.
support.
You were next.
You know, I withdrew my hand because
Oh,
I think.
sorry. I didn't
it's
see it.
okay.
It was-
I think Mr. Robbins was getting kind of to the point of where I was going to go, but, you know, just to emphasize, this isn't just about youth. It was brought to our attention because of the proximity to a school. I am more interested more broadly in the health of our community and what we are focusing our attention on, and this is something that seems like a reasonable investigation.
Great. Mr. Roberts?
I agree on the scope of this agenda item, but just real quickly, I was just curious, we got 28 of them in the city boundaries. I'm wondering what kind of other saturations are in other cities of our same size. Yeah. And how are we above that? But also, we also have a heavy tourist influx, so I'm sure a large portion of the sales of tobacco goes to tourists, especially the international tourists. So I was just curious on that. I wasn't trying to make a point from that either way.
Great.
I think
And
that's a good
Mr.,
thing.
I think it's a really good thing to
I
say.
think that's a
Keep-
good thing to add, to request staff add to as they build their considerations on this
Well,
issue.
let's see if we
to
have
include that.
the votes to pass it before we do that. Mr. Jenkins?
Would it be possible, as part of an ordinance with a moratorium, that we get a report other than in 10 months? So we get an update maybe in 5 months, 4 months? Or we get some kind of reporting that informs us how are we doing, what are we looking at, how many have we conducted outreach to our community, if so, what you know, so that we don't go into this simply, oh, fix it, staff, just fix it, because is that something that we could do if in fact there are the votes to pass the urgency, which of course takes 4/5? That's a pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a reasonable ask. I think as we put together the public outreach and the process and the timeline for investigating an ordinance, there would be checkpoints with council along the way.
Okay.
I'm just
All
going
right.
to say one last thing because Mr. Roberts made me think of it. You know, is this typical of a mountain town? Do most towns with a lot of outdoor adventure, physical activity that pride themselves on being kind of health-centric have this many tobacco retailers? I hadn't thought of that, but it's
Yeah.
curious. Like, is this typical,
I think
or is this more than?
I think we have a lot of gas stations. If you go up inside, so every gas station has a tobacco retailer license because gas stations make a lot of their money on their inside sales, meaning the SKUs that they sell inside the store. They barely make any money selling gas. So tobacco is obviously an item that is in almost every single gas station you go to. That's part of their business, right? So each gas station, and we have a lot of gas stations because we go from a town of 20,000 people to 100,000 on a Friday. Each one of those is going to have, we have Save Mart, probably 200 feet from the school. I believe the Old Denny's is supposed to be a cigar lounge, from what I've been told. Those are all non-conforming and going to exist no matter what we do. To me, I just don't see, again, I see this as over-regulation on not just smoke shops, but people that want to have a gas station and that they want to sell and compete with every other gas station. This is, to me, overstepping, and it puts more work on our staff that I don't see as necessary, in my personal view. But again, we all have different views. That's why we're all here elected.
And yet gas stations can have exemptions. That's part of what the report would be.
But then what are we doing? Like, that's the thing, that's what I'm saying. Like, what are we, that's how I see it. But let me leave it at that. If there are there other, yes, Mr. Robbins?
I agree. I definitely agree that selling lethally addictive drugs can be a very profitable business. That doesn't make it a business that we should incentivize, encourage, or want in our community. So yeah, they can. I no doubt that businesses can make a lot of money selling highly addictive drugs.
Making a lot of money. It's about
that's a way they can make up shortfalls in other parts of their business too by selling gas. But like that doesn't make it something we necessarily want to be doing.
Right.
So look, I think we're talking so much right now as though we have a regulatory framework at hand. We don't, and I would like to suggest a motion.
Go for it.
And I think unless there's more debate, so I would like to flip the page. 1 moment. To pass a motion adopting an ordinance extending the urgency ordinance 2026-1205 by 10 months and 15 days, apparently, pending further study or adoption of a permanent ordinance regarding tobacco sales. And as a nod to Councilmember Roberts, also, in addition, request that such analysis and research that take place include, as possible and practical, an assessment of the customers of various tobacco establishments with regards to local versus tourist, because I think that would be a valuable data point to have in our conversations.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We can vote.
Oh, we're voting.
That motion carries. Thank you.
Great. All right, we can move on to new business. This is going to be item 4, the LA 28 Olympic Torch Relay Invitation Letter and Agreement, and this will be Ms. Roverud.
Thank you, Mayor Bass, members of the council. Before you is a consideration of the LA 28 Olympic Torch Relay Agreement. Initial contact with the LA 28 Torch Relay team was through Councilmember Roberts, and he brought that to city staff, police chief, our assistant city attorney, and myself have had follow-up conversations with the LA 28 team. They're presenting an opportunity for the city to participate in the 2028 Olympic Torch Relay, which they are planning to go through all 50 states before the Olympic flame arrives in Los Angeles for the opening on July 24th, 2028. Check my notes here. They have indicated that they would announce the relay route in the participating cities in early 2027. If selected, the event within the city would likely occur in the June or early July 2028 timeframe. The participation in the opportunity to be selected requires the city to engage in this agreement that is included within your packet. That agreement establishes the framework for coordinating with LA 28 on the planning and execution of an event, and also what the city commitments would be for supporting that event. There are a lot of details that are left to be worked out. That's very clear. Those will be worked out through a community task force and in collaboration with the LA 28 team. So on a lot of these points where the city is making a commitment, we don't yet know the full scale of what that would look like, and it certainly could vary across a large spectrum if the city is selected. The agreement commits the city to things such as participating in the planning and coordination process, providing permits that are needed for the event free of charge, committing to providing city facilities and helping to identify any non-city facilities that might be needed to support the event, requires the city to provide parking areas if the torch relay team is staying overnight. Also provide security, provide emergency medical services, sanitation management, traffic management, and law enforcement for the event. The agreement also spells out some marketing and advertising restrictions that the city would be subject to throughout the process, and also requires the city, to the extent of its authority, to prevent any other major events, conferences, large gatherings to occur within the city on the same day as the torch relay, unless permission is provided by LA 28. I've discussed this opportunity with a lot of the city team, and it's a very exciting opportunity. It is aligned with the City Council's strategic plan for facilitating events. An event like an Olympic torch relay is not an everyday opportunity. It's very aligned with what I view as our community values and culture, and think that it would be something that would not only be an economic development opportunity, but also an excellent community building opportunity. There certainly are resources that would need to be committed to it and some costs associated with it. However, the event itself could turn out to be something as simple as a half-hour torch relay through a portion of the city, and then they move on. It could, the final city of the day in their schedule has an opportunity to have a mini cauldron lighting event, and a lot of cities will put on entertainment, festivals, or other things to kind of heighten that Olympic feel that comes with the Olympic flame coming through the community. So it's kind of the scale of what could occur. So we don't know the full extent of the financial or the staff resource commitment. However, in talking with staff that would most likely be very involved, they're excited about the opportunity, and we do think that we would be able to rise to the occasion and put on an event that would be exciting for our community. So we have brought this forward for City Council consideration. Like I said, the agreement is included in the packet and summarized in the staff report. If you have any questions, happy to answer them.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Jenkins.
I commend the Mayor Pro Tem who was approached on this matter for bringing such an exciting event together. My questions relate, if we approve an agreement today and without knowing the cost tomorrow, or having an estimate of the cost, or having a ballpark for the cost, if we find, which is likely unlikely, if we find that the costs are too great or the demands are too much, do we have the ability to not participate in it? Are we committing to agree to something that we don't know all the terms are? I guess that's my question.
Yeah, as I noted, we don't know all the details. We don't know the exact financial or resource need to put this on. However, there are a lot of opportunities for the city to make decisions on what the scale of the event is. Like I said, it could be something fairly simple that's more straightforward even than our 4th of July parade. But if we choose, we have an opportunity to do other kinds of components to an event, whether it's entertainment, festival, other kinds of things to involve the community. That's really up to us as a city. And so we do have some control over what the scale is in terms of the city involvement, but you're correct, we don't know in exact detail on that.
So the last component of that is maybe to the city attorney. Are we committing to do something in the future, irrevocable commitment, that without knowing all the costs, and details. Are we committing to a blank check, if you will, as good as it may be? That's really my key question. Or are there stops along the way that we could say, hey, that isn't exact? So I'll just leave the question at that.
So do I think I do not believe there's a commitment to a blank check, in that the contract cannot require you to adopt specific appropriations, et cetera. However, you will have obligations under the agreement, and the agreement does not have a termination provision allowing the city to terminate for convenience, which is typical in most public agency contracts. So will you potentially be required to spend more money than you are anticipating? Perhaps. But does the contract commit you to spending unlimited amounts of money? I don't believe that is the case. I do believe the council still retains the budgetary powers it has.
Great. Mr. Roberts.
I just wanted to thank Ms. Overwood for a great representation of the opportunity. We can do as little as we want or as much as we want, but I think it'd be a great opportunity for the entire community to celebrate this event, and our international visitors will be really excited about it as well. Great representation, Ms. Overwood. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Horgan, excuse me.
So my only experience with these types of events is as a hospital operations manager in a large city, San Francisco. And it sounds exciting, but then I have this, uneasy caution that arises because this is an international event. And I'm curious about the scope and scale of the type of visitation we might encounter, but then also for lack of a better word, security, okay? So I was gonna ask if Chief Roberson felt comfortable answering, is this something that we would be able to do a really thorough risk assessment and incident action plan, and under those processes, part of ICS, would be able to suggest mutual aid and stand in EOC for any events that might occur, because this could be a real safety risk.
The concerns are elaborate, yeah. And so in the conversations that we had, we were talking about the federal and state partners that we would likely have in all this. There's a little more detail that we were given in one of the meetings, but yeah, the feds will be involved. It would be I'm sure that Cal US would be involved because it's going to come through California. But there's a lot of details that have yet to be ferreted out.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback, I'm wondering, this hasn't come through town, so we don't have any institutional knowledge of what it would be like, but have you had experience with an international event and how the federal or state OES provides for IAP and mutual aid and EOC?
I don't, and I don't know what the intersection of that would be in this case.
Okay, I just wanted to present those as considerations because it's not just a festival. This is also puts us in a situation where we're going to have to be prepared to action if something occurs on our territory during an international event. So,
and I can say we have done a torch relay 4 years ago. It was law enforcement torch relay that they came through California Highway Patrol, brought it all through California. I accepted it at Lakeview Commons. I think it was 3 years ago. But yeah.
Yeah, that's I agree with Ms. Horgan that I think the scale of this is going to be well beyond what's happened here before.
Right. And then I would just say that, the celebrity golf tournament, which was just last weekend, definitely had a lot of that federal oversight because of its threats and things that were coming at a federal level. So I think we, maybe not in the city, but it's definitely in the basin that we deal with that type of exposure and threat. One thing, too, I would just ask as a question, have we considered, we obviously hosted the Olympics in 1960 here in Lake Tahoe. That happened over at what is now Palisades. There are 2 cauldrons there that burn at the entrance of Palisades. it would almost make sense to me that if we did accept a torch, you would maybe go to the site of the Olympics that happened in the Tahoe Basin before. So was there any thought to communicating with Palisades and potentially Placer County?
So that did come up in some conversation with the torch relay team, and they are considering those types of things that kind of tie Tahoe area to the Olympics in Olympic Valley. They did mention that that's an area that is also, they're considering to have included in the relay in some form or fashion. I have no idea exactly what that would look like. I did want to note, I don't have personal experience with it, but the Winter Olympics torch did come through the South Shore before the Salt Lake City Olympics in 2002, I believe. So if people know people that were in town at that time, we could certainly get some feedback on what that looked like.
Great.
From news articles that I read, there were no concerning issues that had occurred at that time, but it was a very different time. So certainly agree that there is a heightened level of kind of intensity, perhaps, but I think it is also a heightened level of opportunity. So we can look at it both ways.
Thank you, Ms. Roveru. Mr. Jenkins.
Just a follow-up question. When I did a little research online, it talks about LA 28, then it talks about Los Angeles, and then it talks about Fresno. Who are we actually agreeing with to do what? What? I guess the thing with Fresno kind of threw me because I just don't know who we're dealing with. Who specifically are we dealing with? Who is the agreement with specifically, and who are those people?
The agreement is specifically with the Olympic and Paralympic Committee for the LA 28 Olympics. The city of Fresno had pretty much a mirrored agenda item on their city council meeting agenda for last week to approve the same agreement. That's why it comes up in a search online.
So if this council passes it, will it be the LA 28 Fresno South Lake Tahoe? So you're saying because Fresno agreed to it, that when the search was done, that just got hooked to?
Yes, so
to, okay.
Since Fresno has entered into this agreement, they will be considered as a city that the torch relay will go through. Yeah.
Great. All right. Seeing no other questions, we will
Comments,
go.
not questions.
Okay.
Yeah, comments.
Comments? Okay. We will go ahead and open this item to public comment for anybody in the room. Ms. O'Hara.
I happened to be here in 2002 when the torch came to South Lake Tahoe. I had to think about what year it was because I didn't own a house, so I was staying at the old Holiday Inn. And they came into town and went up to Heavenly, took the torch up on the World Cup chair and skied down, and then they had fireworks. And it was a pretty big event. People came and cheered, and it wasn't overwhelming. People didn't come from other places. It wasn't as big as the fireworks. It was mostly local people, but it was a pretty fun thing. I don't know exactly how they got to town or how they took the torch out of town, but I actually saw the whole thing and went up there, and it was a really nice event. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Ms. O'Hara, for your comments. Anybody else here in the room for public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and then look for Zoom.
No hands are raised, Mayor.
Great. Coming back for comments, Mr. Robbins.
Yeah, and just for context, I do think the city probably doesn't have the resources to host an event, an Olympic event, but hosting a torch relay would be extremely cool. Particularly having the Olympic torch spend the night at Champions Plaza at Lakeview Commons and having an event there, and maybe having the relay come down from Palisades from their Olympic cauldron down the East Shore. I mean, I can think of a million ways in which this could be done in ways that are really cool. And I think this is just, it's the right kind of event. And these things, while there are certainly security challenges that will need to be addressed, for which we will have to rise to the occasion, These events tend to not be big international destination events. People aren't usually flying in or traveling in from everywhere to see the torch relay, not until it sort of gets closer to like the actual like LA, events and opening ceremonies kind of events. These tend to be more things that are attended locally or by people traveling from the local area. So I wouldn't anticipate this to be a particularly large crowd event. And to that end, we do the 4th of July. We do parades in town, and we manage security for parades. And we do the 4th of July parades. We do fireworks. What's that?
The Golf Classic.
With the golf stuff, yeah. And this would be an event with novel, for sure, elements in terms of the security management, without a doubt. But in terms of the event scale overall, in terms of the number of people, I would find it unlikely that this would be much bigger than the 4th of July, which is a pretty big event, actually. It's a good chunk of the town turns out for that. And we manage that with aplomb. So I would like to suggest, I put my support behind putting our hat in the ring for hosting this event and putting it in with suggestions that we would like to be considered for an overnight stop and that we might be willing to do some, cultural events along with it. I can think off the top of my head half a dozen people I know who would be good candidates for torchbearers in terms of like local athletes and local people who would fit that. That we happen to have a good number of. We happen to have a handful of Olympians and a good fistful of world-class athletes here that would be good candidates for torchbearers. I think this would be a really cool event to be able to do.
Great. Mr. Roberts.
I just wanted to add a little bit more context to it. What this is all about is the torch is going to go across the nation in 100 days. And what they do is they travel to 3 to 4 cities every day. They pick up and leave the city and stop in the next city and start again. And each day there's one city that gets to be the final city where they do have a celebration and the lighting of a cauldron. We are being chosen as one of those cities, and that's why there was a request for confidentiality, because there's a lot of lobbying going on to get that opportunity for the additional exposure. I think it's something that the whole community may want to get involved in. We can reach out to all of our business owners, make a whole fair out of it, make a whole celebration. Once they do decide the routes, that will decide whether we can do something like the Palisades or something like that. All those ideas.
A million good ideas. Of options to choose from.
Another good idea is to get the Washoe tribe involved.
For sure.
So it's a lot of things still yet to be decided. We can do as little as what we put into our 4th of July parade. Not that that's not nothing, but
we had our police chief directing traffic.
No,
Especially the guy
but
on the bike.
Especially that guy on the bike handing out candy. Yeah, that loser.
But we could go way big too.
Great.
I'd vote for.
All right. Seeing no more, anybody want to put a motion?
Well, yeah, I will just say I am in support of. I just wanted to recognize that there are some legitimate concerns, and we should plan to have an incident action plan, and we should plan to be able to stand in EOC if something happens, and be ready to coordinate with whoever decides to participate more broadly than just the Olympic, the folks that are coming in with the Olympics.
Councilmember, might I suggest that I'm formulating a motion in my head. Might I suggest that the motion include that if selected, because we're putting on a request to be considered, that doesn't mean they're going to give it to us.
Yeah, we have it. We're just agreeing. We're accepting it.
Yeah, so
We've already been chosen.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So then.
If I may just clarify for
thought it was the
council,
other way. Yeah, are you sure?
the suggested action is to pass a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the LA 28
Gotcha, okay.
agreement, so making that commitment
Perfect.
and designating the mayor pro tem and the city manager as points of contact. I just was made aware that there is a typo in the resolution. So I'll point that out to you so that we can amend it as part of the motion. Where is that here? In section 2, there's a reference that the mayor pro tem would sign the torch relay agreement, but actually, per city code, it is the mayor that would sign unless otherwise directed by the council.
In my summary, executive summary page, it says authorizing the mayor to sign and designates the mayor. So I think
just in the
that
resolution.
It's correct in the summary.
it's correct in the summary, but
correct in
gotcha.
the title,
Gotcha.
but it's.
So in the
Very
motion, I
correct.
will say as in, okay. got
Who
it.
wants to make, either
But
Mr.
I'll make a
Roberts or
I'll make
Mr.
a
Robbins?
motion, yeah, and what I was going to suggest to, I think, because Councilmember Horgan, your concerns are extremely valid, is that I would amend the motion to include that the police chief provide some briefings to the council on the security process and analysis at a time as appropriate as they get formulated. Would that be
Second.
reasonable?
That gives
Is
it
that your
a-
motion?
No, that's my question to the police chief. I'll put it in the motion in a minute.
There's a lot of.
Considering the event, it may or may not be appropriate, given security constraints.
You give up your,
So
you
there
want
may-
to tell the public.
There may be
your-
some,
Well, then I would say is provide
Confidentiality.
information to the council as appropriate and as feasible. Would that be more acceptable then?
I mean, it's up to you guys. I think I trust the,
I think I trust
trust the
her.
police department.
No, I do too.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm putting it into.
I think the.
I'm fine with not having it, but
Safety of the
I'm
city
trying
is
to
well
come to terms.
guarded. That's not my concern. It's that all stakeholders are aware of and involved in case there is an EOC, example being Barton, example being, mutual aid if we need to lean on
Sheriff's
our
Department,
partners,
Papa Douglas.
as we do for other large events.
if I could
Right, but our
interject,
EOC
there's,
will get triggered based on events that happen. The EOC is not just going to happen because we have to have an emergency for it to get triggered, right? I mean, so,
An incident.
and those safeguards, yeah, but I think that would happen for the.
this document is not the entirety. There's a complex and elaborate process behind all this that will be vetted with LA 28 and the city and our federal and state partners. So this isn't all you're going to get. This is merely scratching
Then I'm
the
fine not
surface.
including it if you're okay with that and just trusting our staff. That is cleaner for me anyway. I was suggesting that to assuage your
First.
concerns.
Yeah, of course.
Part of this is that we will be creating a task force, and we will be addressing all those kinds of issues as they develop and as they come forward. Chief Robertson and I have already started discussing some of that, or at least with the initial thoughts together. And the entourage for the LA 28, they have about 300 people that are traveling with them on this torch run, and I would assume quite a bit of that is a security detail at all levels.
And like the inner ring of security is probably theirs. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, there will be some, what did he say? There was a lot of the FBI cars or something like that will be in the parade as well.
May I assume, question, Mr. Mayor? May I assume that other agencies or other organizations like the Tahoe Prosperity Center and the Tahoe Chamber, that there will be contact and looking at ways that they might be able to assist in this effort? Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely.
And the TID?
Should I include in the
I
motion some
just-
direction to make it a bigger event, to engage us, to make it as fulsome as event as we can reasonably do?
I think it seems like a lot of that's going to come back, right?
Yeah.
Like that, a lot of that's
Then
going to
fine,
come
then
back.
perfect, then yeah. Because my preference would be, I think we should make a party out of this. This sounds awesome. Rather than doing the bare minimum, I think we should
Yeah.
do
As
the bare maximum.
to what we
As much as we can.
As much as we reasonably, but
That is the
let's go be forward and have this be a thing. So I'll make a motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign the LA 28 Torch Relay Agreement with the correction that it's the mayor who signs the agreement, as indicated, and designates the mayor pro tem and city manager as points of contact.
Great.
Second.
All
Staff,
right.
did that adequately address your
Yeah.
typo concerns?
We got a motion and a
did for me.
second. and
Okay,
we
very
can
good.
vote.
That was easy.
That motion unanimously carries. Thank you.
Thank you, fellow council members.
Yes, absolutely. Great item.
Very cool.
All right,
I'm
moving on
stoked
to our
about that.
agenda planning calendar. This is item 6, the agenda planning calendar, and this will be Ms. Roverud.
Thank you, Mayor Bass. So your next regularly scheduled meeting is August 11th. That is a daytime meeting. As you can see from the APC, we have a lot of agenda items on that day. September 8th is also a daytime meeting, so we're anticipating bringing forward quite a few business items on that agenda as well. Your other meetings, we have the budget workshop in August 25th, that preferably we like to keep that really focused on the budget. Sometimes it does take a significant amount of time to get through all of that. Other meetings in September, October are evening meetings, so we are looking to try to keep those from going till midnight. It seems to be everybody's preference. So just wanted to make sure you were aware that for the day meetings in August and September, we are planning to bring forward a lot of agenda items to keep a lot of the council requests as well as operational business kind of moving forward at a good pace.
Thank you so much, Ms. Roverud. Any questions on the APC? All right, seeing none, I think then that we will move on. We don't need to take public comment on the APC. We are going to be moving into closed session. This is a conference.
I have APC items.
We don't have, this is a special meeting, so I don't think
No, we have APC, he can make additions to the APC.
I don't have a council member, well, I mean, I could have a council member report if you twisted my arm.
Well, we just don't have it on the agenda.
It states on this item that identify with at least consent of another council member. So usually, it is listed on both items. Typically, if we have comments at the end, we just wait for that so they can do reports and additions at the end.
It's right here, yeah.
But we have it on this agenda for this reason.
For the last little over 2 years, I've been working on and off with the Forest Service and city staff to try to engage the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit in the establishment of what their term is a guiding and outfitting permit program. This is something that's come up a couple times in the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and this is to allow people to do things like backcountry guiding for skiing and hiking and things like that. There is currently a process for that in the surrounding national forest units, so El Dorado and Tahoe National Forest, but not in the basin. And we finally staff and Ms. Roverud finally got a hold of the right people at the Forest Service and got an answer as to how much money they don't have in order to establish that program. And then it was that they needed one staff member, and they finally got back to us with a cost estimate, so I could finally bring that to us. And while I had in my head that this was going to be cost prohibitive, it turns out the amount of money that they would need for outside agencies to fund the Forest Service, for which they don't have the money themselves, to establish a guiding and outfitting program, their estimate was $150,000 a year, which is not much for establishing an entire small industry that our locals could do. Now, that would be for the entire basin, so it wouldn't just benefit the city. And while 150 grand's not a huge amount of money, I do think it's worth passing the hat around to the other counties and to the North and South Shore tourism districts, to the North and South Shore chambers of commerce, to all the surrounding counties to see if they can pitch in a few bucks, which would take this from being not much money to peanuts, for the Forest Service to start receiving and reviewing applications for guiding and outfitting in the basin.
So you want this on the agenda, so
I
we can
want,
discuss it, 'cause we can
correct.
discuss
What
it.
I would like, so with that in mind, because you need to know what it is, I'm going to suggest that the agenda item would be to direct staff to reach out to all relevant regional partners, including but not limited to all surrounding counties, the North and South Shore Chambers of Commerce, the North and South Shore Tourism Districts, and other relevant parties that might be able to provide some funding and return to council with results as to whether or not these other agencies can help share some of the cost of the estimated $150,000 to fund the Forest Service to establish.
I think it's a great idea, but it's not on the agenda. So we have to put it on the agenda
Well,
to
that's what I'm-
provide
I second
direction.
that.
Thank you.
All right, so we
can
got a second,
provide-
so
We
it's-
can say, do
it'll-
with this and come back.
it'll
and
now be-
that's the agenda.
Well, as we've previously been interpreting, the matter itself, as I can remember, a thing called an Economic Development Commission and other things, you have to have it on the agenda to provide the direction.
Right.
So it doesn't mean if they on their own wanted to do some things, and I'm not disagreeing with your thought, I'm just procedurally asking the question.
Right, so we've got a
The
second.
council can act to place a matter on the agenda for future consideration. You cannot give direction to staff until that is on the agenda. That being said, I agree completely that in advance of that, staff can go to investigation.
Correct.
Yep. Great.
So go do the investigation for that agenda
For the
item.
staff report.
To find out if other counties and jurisdictions might be willing to chip in.
Great. So you got a motion and a
Yes.
second. Do you have any other items?
Yes.
Okay.
At the bike trail opening, I spoke at some length with Dr. Q regarding the prioritization of bike lanes for traffic in the city. In particular, that in order for the city staff to prioritize bike traffic over motor vehicle crossings at intersections such as, but not limited to, Eloise, and also to eliminate or adjust parking in bike lanes as we have on Lakeview Avenue, where we currently allow vehicle parking in the painted bike lanes. We need to change the designations and prioritizations by resolution. And so, without getting into the minutia, which I would like to designate to staff to figure out, I would like to put an agenda item for which we can discuss and provide direction to staff to prioritize bicycle lane and route and path travel, bicycle travel of all the various kinds as designated in California Code, of which there are quite a few, over crossing car travel, and to alter as necessary bike path / route / lane designations so that we allow painted bike infrastructure priority for bicycles over vehicle parking, as we do as we do by way of example, but not limited to Lakeview Avenue, and to also consider, since we have deferred the repaving of Eloise, to provide some direction to do repainting of Share the Road, Sharrows, and other indicators on Eloise pending its eventual reconstruction, since that is our primary marked bike pathway and it's undermarked other than signage, roadside signage. So those.
Is there a second?
I'd like to second that, and I'd like
okay.
to make a comment because we did receive public communications about that intersection again. I've been, as many of you know, watching countless hours of YouTube, recorded meetings, and this intersection comes up in the meetings historically so much that I wonder at what risk we are, considering that we've gotten letters, people have spoken to me.
Can't say we didn't
So
know.
Yeah,
we're
we
getting
can't
into
say we didn't
discussion.
know.
We have a motion. We have the
Yeah.
second, so it's
Very
going to be
good.
on the agenda.
And then, next, sorry, I apologize. Last time I joked I had 6, and I was joking and you all panicked. I don't have 6, but I have a few. So, following up on the analysis and discussion regarding the plastic revetment support material that was put into Lakeview Commons
6 or 7 years ago.
quite a few years ago, and in discussion with Dr. Q about how that came to be. The basis for that was that we were following the building standards outlined by Caltrans for that kind of work. And within the then current and now current still standards outlined by Lahontan, which still permit the use of plastic materials like that
It's
in
above the
revetments.
water line.
So long as it's above the water line. And if we wish to provide direction to staff to no longer bury plastic in the ground when not absolutely necessary, that will need to come as a resolution. And that way it provides long-term permanent guidance, which we can undo if needed, but which would be needed in order to provide staff with guidance on changing our construction standards to no longer bury
Second.
plastic mesh
Great,
in
you
the
got your
ground, even
second.
in general. Okay, very good. And then last, it's been a busy few weeks. We just came through our 4th of July holiday, and again, as has been happening for many, many years, while the tourism district spends close to $3 million a year on advertising for tourists to come to Tahoe, they spend $0 per year on funding beach cleanup, leaving it all to local volunteers. This is in addition to the fact that they spend almost all of their money advertising Tahoe to the Bay Area and a bit to Texas, and almost none of it on making the tourism product much better. A small amount goes to Lake Link, but very little to nothing goes to things like ski bus shuttles, and very little to nothing goes to beach shuttles that we should be having, that this type of funding is explicitly allowed to be used. I consider that a misappropriation of funds. I would like to see some pressure put on the tourism district to require some of these allocations, or to change some of these allocations away from just tourist advertising to actually making the tourism product better. And to that end, I'd like to put on the agenda a discussion for the potential dissolution of the Tourism Improvement District under California Vehicle Code, or to have them enter into an agreement to allocate their money with more wisdom and less misappropriation.
Question.
I'll second that.
All right, so
Okay,
you got a
cool.
second. Let's not, I mean, unless you need it, but he's already got a second, so the questions probably should come back unless. it's
Yeah,
a-
well, it sounds like we've almost had a full discussion of the
I
item
know,
today,
that's
so.
why I agree with you, but just to stop it, I'm not trying to, you hear what,
Oh, I
yeah.
just had a question.
If you want to ask.
I'd like a broader, I would like to look at broader at our friends who money that is generated locally goes to TPC, Tahoe Trust Prosperity, and the not TTD, but it goes to the larger regional, that be part of the discussion of where money goes and how others' monies could address.
Anyways, we'll have the discussion when it comes back. The TID and the dissolution of it, have it come back. It's interesting. Any other, you're good?
That was plenty.
Okay. Ms. Horgan?
I would like to thank the city for a wonderful 4th of July.
Oh, yeah.
I very much enjoyed it, and I think everybody in the city did. And I think the new route seemed to work out really well for people. And
The new route was good. The new route was really good.
yeah, I just didn't want it to go unnoticed that was it was just a fabulous day. And thank you to Mr. Stark and his team. They were so on point in terms of getting everybody queued and prepared, and managing a larger volume of entrants than ever before. So I just kudos to the city for that.
All right.
I would like
Anything
to-
on?
yeah, I'd like to thank the treasurer
Yeah,
for
we
giving
really-
us
Hold on, we
candy.
have an
Yeah.
agenda planning calendar. We are not in comments. This is a special meeting. Are there any APC items that anybody would like to put onto the calendar? Mr. Roberts, thank you. For that, thank you to the public. We are going to go ahead and move into our closed session. And thank you all for being here.
Mayor, can we take a 5-minute break while I
Yes, we can.
Okay, I believe we're ready to go into our closed session and take public comment, Mayor.
Great. We will call the meeting back to order. We are going to, before moving into closed session, open this item for public comment. Anybody here in the room? Seeing none, we'll go to Zoom.
Is there anyone, we have one participant on Zoom. Did you want to make a public comment? If not, we will see you after closed session is done and we report out. So we will be closing the Zoom. No hands raised, Mayor.
Great. With
All
that,
right,
we'll move
thank you
into
so
closed
much.
session. Anybody volunteer to close the door for us?
All right, Mayor, we are ready to go back into our report out.
Great. We will call this meeting back to order in our open session to give a closed session report. Mr. Rudin, any closed session report?
Nothing to report.
Great. With that, we will come back to call this meeting to order and we will be adjourned.